Researchers at UC San Diego claim that the average person is exposed to 34 gigabytes and 100,000 words of information every day. That's an entire novel, every single day. And yet many of us rarely treat the things we read with any intentionality. I certainly did not. I used to wake up in the morning, scroll through social media. I used to get angry at headlines that often turned out to be completely false. I used to quote information that was wrong to my friends. And I wondered, why did I let it affect me to that extent? Well, reading and consuming information is never passive. It's intrinsically actively changing the way we believe things and interpret things. The act of refusing media should be an active form of mental defense in our modern world, especially in one with access to nearly infinite amounts of information. And this comes in our age predominantly through social media. The algorithms on our social media pages do not intend to push ethical and unbiased content, but rather to keep our attention for as long as possible. And on social media pages, which in this age especially, push a lot of misinformation, which is increasingly prevalent and harmful, why is it that we societally and individually do not place greater emphasis on fact-checking? An NYU study found that people with more extreme political views online were far more likely to encounter false news, and additionally far more likely to believe it. And furthermore, social media algorithms have a tendency to unintentionally generate echo chambers which can further radicalize users. It's a simple mechanism. You engage with content you agree with, the algorithm takes note of this and it begins to show you more and more. And gradually, eventually, you stop seeing anything that challenges you. Your views are reinforced, strengthened, and often pushed further than you never intended. It doesn't stop at politics either. A study in health psychology found that repeated media exposure to crisis events, things like natural disasters or conflicts, can lead to measurable increases in anxiety and stress, even in people who are not directly involved. And yet, for all costs, we keep scrolling. Why? Well, perhaps the most uncomfortable truth is that the algorithms are not the only culprit. A significant part of our vulnerability is cognitive and has been with us for far longer than any social media platform. One of the first tendencies to blame is confirmation bias. We naturally seek out information that agrees with what we believe with and tend to ignore what doesn't. Algorithms exploit this constantly and generate our aforementioned echo chambers. Another is the illusory truth effect. The more times you encounter something, the more likely you are to believe it. Not necessarily from the presentation of new evidence, but simply because it feels familiar. A 2020 study found that repeated false statements were judged more credible even when participants knew they were false. So that headline you scrolled past 10 times this week, every encounter pushes it towards credibility without you ever deciding to believe it. These are not personal failings, but rather features of cognition that were never designed for a world in which repetition is engineered. The pattern of media dictating daily and societal life is not a new thing. It's been foundational since the beginning of societal life as a whole. Written texts have dictated a lot of societal structure, be it laws, ethics, identity, customs. These texts would unite and outlast generations. In Yuval Harari's book, Sapiens, his central argument is that the reason that we dominate the planet is due to our ability to believe in shared fictions as a collective. He raised the examples of rights, money, and borders. They're not physical things, but only exist because we all collectively believe they do. Media has always dictated human life. I think political manifestos, constitutions, declarations, propaganda, all these things have no intrinsic value, but it is us as a collective and us as individuals that make them real. Why is it then that we do not place the same emphasis and why is we not place the same value on the information we see on a much smaller scale? The information we may read on the news, the misinformation you may see and scroll past. Why is it not valid to say they can affect us on the same level? We have the power to interpret and choose what we read, and by extent what affects us. We all share this power, but scarcely use it. So what does it look like to actually consume media intentionally? Well, it certainly doesn't mean disassociating from social media. We don't have to throw our phones into a river, get rid of them, but rather change the manner in which we approach the media. That is with skepticism and with curiosity. There's a useful concept from philosophy called epistemic hygiene. This is the idea that as a responsibility to not just others, but to ourselves, to ensure the beliefs we hold are ones that have been verified, fact-checked, and examined, not just ones we've absorbed. And doing this is fairly simple. You can ask a few questions. Before you share something, ask, where's this coming from? Before you get angry at a headline, ask, have I read further into this? And before you go into another rabbit hole, ask, is this something I'm actually interested in, or something I'm going into because I was pushed into it? These aren't difficult questions, but they require a moment of pause, and that pause precisely is what differentiates between intentional and unintentional consumption. And perhaps this is, the philosopher Michael Lynch wrote that the internet gives us godlike access to the information on the internet. More than any civilization in history, if you think about it. We have more access to information, more data than ever. And yet we are more, collectively, less certain in the things that we believe. And perhaps this is no coincidence, because in this near infinite information-driven world we live in, we seem to have relinquished our sovereignty towards that very information. The shift necessary is not one of massive magnitude, but honestly, just of seconds. The same way that in our daily lives we choose who we spend more time with, they're better for us, or to cut somebody off if they're bad for us. We should place a similar filter on the media and the information we see every day. So next time you see a video, article, or fact that you find impacts you more than you'd want or more than you'd expect, make sure to second guess it and arrive at your own conclusion. Thank you.